AI has been around for a while, but we associate it with ChatGPT and text and something you do at your desk. We're taking that kind of same construct into the physical world. So on-edge compute, bringing the AI into the real world.
Everybody, when they think of AI, they think about ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude. I mean, it's generative AI. Obviously, that's important. You know, all of those are AI, but AI is so much more than generative artificial intelligence. The whole applied AI side of things. How are we deploying, edge devices, edge sensors that are intelligent at the edge, and then deploy artificial intelligence and utilize that artificial intelligence in every level, control systems, networking, in the fog, in cloud, what we call the edge to cloud continuum. And that is really where the action is. It's really in the applied artificial intelligence.
I say use the AI as a tool to help you become more efficient and effective in the jobs that you're doing. Your custom ones can be built in a matter of seconds and minutes. I mean, it's not that hard. Even a simple helicopter pilot can go build this agent.
We teach them the edge to cloud continuum in any sector. Now you can start seeing how that applies to other sectors. We talk about it in manufacturing with smart sensors, devices, programmable logic controllers, data collectors and computer networks, and then cloud computing. Same thing happens in healthcare. Same thing happens in energy. Same thing happens in retail, hospitality, in defense, in construction, across every one of those segments. And so that's when we talk about the edge to cloud continuum. That is my belief of how we teach AI, is we teach how that data is moving back and forth.
Our children need to know it's not, okay, I don't want to go in and be a programmer, or, it's across all. And I gave an example of a couple of industries, right? But your mind can think of myriad industries that there's application. If students want to go down a different route, you can't ignore it. I think we kind of limit it to, AI is writing papers, and that's the extent of the conversation. That's just so insufficient for what we need.
Your comments on education, on applied artificial intelligence, on the sense of urgency. This isn't a 5-year problem. This is a 5-month problem we have here in the United States of making sure that every school across the country is teaching applied AI. Super, super important. It's Matt Kirchner, your host for the Tech Ed podcast, where our audience knows just about every week we have one conversation or another around artificial intelligence. It's something that absolutely fascinates me, is absolutely transforming about every aspect of our world, every sector of our economy. Today, we're going to do an episode that is largely comprised of applied AI and some really, really amazing technology that we see being deployed by today's guest and his company. His company is called VigilanteX. The guest is Lieutenant General Brian Cavanaugh, and I'm really, really excited for this episode. We are going to see some really awesome examples of applied artificial intelligence. But Brian, as you've given me permission to call you, welcome to the Tech Ed podcast.
Matt, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for what you do with Tech Ed. My view is just, this area for our nation and our future is extremely important. The education aspects, since our foundation, the technology aspects, I think about Benjamin Franklin, now there's Aaron Graham Bell. And this is just another transition period in our history that's most important.
Where would we not be with folks like Benjamin Franklin? Absolutely, and the attachments to electricity, the technology that began with the telephone and is now the basis of the technology we're using to record this podcast. The compliments of Alexander Graham Bell, great inventors like Thomas Edison. I mean, this really is a country full of a history of inventors, a history of innovation. I know your company isn't any different, Brian. We're going to learn about that today. But I want to start out with, as I introduced you at the outset here, Lieutenant General Brian Cavanaugh. I know you were educated at the U.S. Naval Academy, worked your way up to Lieutenant General of the Marine Corps. And for clarification and starters, and I actually learned this on an episode with Todd Young, senator from the great state of Indiana, who I think had a similar path. He went to the Naval Academy and the Marine Corps, and I was like, how does that fit together? He said something along the lines of, there isn't a Marine Corps Academy. If you go to a military academy on a path toward the Marine Corps, you're going to the Naval Academy. Did I get that right?
Absolutely right. Yeah. And actually, one of my closest friends, she's in the Marine Corps, and she came out of Marquette, which I know.
Oh, did she really? Okay, my alma mater, Marquette University. That's amazing. Do you know about what time she was there?
Graduated in 91, I believe. 91.
Huh. Okay, so do you have any idea what the major was?
I do not, no.
Okay, so we'll do some homework on that. My wife and I both graduated from Marquette in 1991, and chances are that one or the other of us probably crossed paths with your friend. So would love to go deeper on that when the time is
Absolutely.
right. Yeah, for sure. So I will tell you, I'm proud of my education at Marquette University. It doesn't quite hold the sway that an education at the Naval Academy does. So we'll get into that. But let's talk about your career a little bit and some of the highlights of that career before you retired from military service. And before you answer that question, I cannot be in the same room, either virtually or in person, with a military veteran without saying thank you for my freedom, and I mean that as sincerely as I can possibly say it. So thank you for that incredible service and the freedom that we enjoy here in the United States of America, thanks to incredible servants like you. And with that, tell us a little bit about that experience in the Marine Corps.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for that acknowledgement. And I won't speak for everybody, but I feel blessed to have been able to have that opportunity. If you'd have met me in high school and asked me if I was going to go in the military, I would have said absolutely not. I wanted to go to Duke University. I grew up in Baltimore. Actually, with one of your previous guests, Dr. Charles Johnson Bay, and I
Yes.
went to high school together, and Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. And so it's a very engineering and science based school. And that really fed well into Annapolis. And like you mentioned earlier, the Naval Academy produces naval officers, and naval is Navy and Marine Corps. So soldiers of the sea are the Marines, right? So technical background, mechanical engineer there. So just, right in my wheelhouse. After graduating, went into the Marine Corps. I was inspired by a gunnery sergeant that was in part of the training curriculum while I was at the prep school, and I became a helicopter pilot. So I've been able to serve basically 34 years. I graduated in 1990, served for 34 years, 4 Pentagon tours, which total about 10 years, heavy focus in the Western Pacific. So a lot of time in Japan, Korea, Thailand, everywhere else out there with a focus area out there. I've flown basically all over the world, 6 or 7 continents I've served on. So just a true blessing. Nothing I ever dreamed of in high school by any means, but just very fortunate to be able to have had this type of career.
And not just served, which obviously would be impressive enough, but at the level of lieutenant general, which is incredibly impressive. Talk about that career pathway in the military, and what was it about you that led you to such an incredibly high rank, and then also talk about how many folks were under your purview, how many individuals did you lead? Help us understand that a little bit.
I'll start with kind of why you serve. One of my passions is to be able to help people. And as you go up in rank, you obviously have more purview over the people you help.
Of course.
So as a young guy, I thought, okay, I'll do about 20 years. And that'll get you to the rank about lieutenant colonel, colonel. And, you're commanding units about 2,000 ish
Yep.
Marines and sailors. But once you make general, you have a major impact at strategic and operational level in your institution. You're able to influence the decision making at the highest levels, provide different perspectives on things and really to impact and help a lot of people. On the Western Pacific side, I was the deputy at Marine Forces Pacific, which is about two-thirds of the Marine Corps' operating force. So roughly 70, 80, 90,000 folks. And
Amazing.
then my last assignment as a lieutenant general was out of Norfolk, Virginia. I was the Fleet Marine Forces Atlantic commander, and that's the other one-third of the entire operating force.
Amazing. Yeah, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to share that so that our audience gets a sense for how special this individual is. So we're talking with somebody that, as our audience now knows, is someone who's pretty special, someone who has exactly the right view of leadership, but it's all about service, and it's all about understanding that leading is about being a servant to the individuals for whom you're responsible. And when you do that, it is amazing when you take that approach, the amazing things that people will do for you, and for, in your case, for their country, for any organization. So servant leadership is at the heart of how I think about leading. Certainly appears, Brian, is at the heart of how you think about leading as well. I should also just mention, as you began the answer a little while ago, that you were a helicopter pilot. I was at the Reagan Library earlier this week, and actually boarded an much older version of Marine One. So that part of the conversation is timely for me because I was just standing aboard a helicopter, not in the air, but in a library, just a
That was at
matter of a few
H3,
days
right?
ago.
H3?
It was. Yep, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. Was that the same kind of
Yeah.
helicopter that you flew?
Yes, I flew
Yeah.
H3s and H60s while I was at HMX-1 in support of President Bush, but the main
Okay.
platform was the H-53. and
Excellent. Which
all
President Bush? Was that W or HW?
the younger.
Okay, yeah, George Bush the younger. I met the older one at one point. I met Laura Bush. I never met W, but I did spend some time with HW years ago. That was a pretty special night as well. Probably do a whole podcast about that, but we'll
Always
we'll
available if you need me.
yeah, excellent. We'll plan on it. We'll keep it rolling here. I want to give a little bit of an example. I was just sitting at a table in California over the weekend talking with some folks about coaching our kids into whatever that came after high school for them. And I made it really, really clear to our two children that, look, there's all kinds of great options for you as you're leaving high school. You can, and none of these are mutual exclusive, and they can stack on each other. You can go to workforce, directly to workforce. You can go to a university. You can go to a technical or community college. You can serve in the military. I mean, we would support any of those choices that our young people, that our kids in our case, made. And as it turns out, a lot of young people are or should be considering careers in the U.S. military. So I would love for you to share, before we get into the great things you're doing at VigilanteX, Brian, why is a military career such a great option, and what are some of maybe those personality traits that might be inherent in a young person that would lead them to a career of service like the one that you had?
Absolutely, Matt. So I'll start with myself. Again, coming out of high school, I had no aspirations to join the military, but obviously from start to finish, I finished high school at 16. I had to wait till I turned 17, and then came on board. And from start to finish, 39 years, 3 months. It's just a
Okay,
true
yeah,
thing,
amazing.
purpose driven. It wasn't anything that I ever even considered, and it's just special. Every field you can think of is in the military. So we may associate military with just what we see in the movies, but we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have dentists. I mean, we have obviously aviators, submariners. There's just so many aspects of all industry representative in the military to do that mission. So it's purpose driven. It's a great opportunity. When I was in uniform and I'd go talk to high schools, I would tell them, obviously I'd start with the Marine Corps. Hey, love for you to try to be a Marine, right?
Right,
And then
try.
branch out and talk to the rest of the services, right? Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force,
Coast
Coast
Guard.
Guard.
Yeah.
And then I would transition. If none of that interests you, the government civilian side is critical to our national defense and our national security. And I talk about all the opportunities on the government side of service, and then the defense industrial base. So welders, electricians, all those kind of vocational aspects. How long does it take to build a ship or a submarine? And you need artisans to do that. So it's a expansive. There's nothing that's off the table of opportunity in quote unquote that military construct.
I think that's important for us to note that, Brian, just the wide range of careers, and kind of going back to my own two kids, neither of whom decided to pursue the military out of high school, but one of whom is now living in Washington D.C. and working pretty closely with the Department of Defense. So to your point, in that case, a civilian role and not employed by the DoD, but in a advisory role to the DoD. All kinds of incredible opportunities for careers in service to the United States. And when we think about a student who's considering a military career, are there certain experiences, types of students, interests that would be appropriate for for a student who's in one of those to maybe be even more considering of a military career than others?
I think when you look at I'll say the characteristics or traits, I think Naval Academy kind of gets it right because they focus on moral, mental, and physical, right?
Hmm.
So that moral foundation is, it's mom and dad or grandma or however that home construct is
Yep.
in your belief system. The mental is the educational aspect. In my opinion, you always want to learn. You're never going to get there. You want to keep being a voracious learner.
Hmm.
And then the physical aspect is a key piece. Obviously, especially as a young person, you have to have certain level of physicality to go and do the mission sets that we do in the military.
Yeah, those are great examples. I was just by coincidence, we're recording this episode about 4 or 5 days after we recorded one with former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, and by coincidence, we're both Eagle Scouts. And I was just reflecting on the Scout Oath and the Scout Law, and just it occurs to me how well that applies to the three examples that you just offered in terms of moral, mental, and physical, and all three of them being incredibly important. Also important, by the way, and as a way of segueing into the next conversation, is the incredible work you're doing at VigilanteX. You're the CEO of a high tech company, which has to be a really, really cool transition. Let's start out with just the overview of the technology. What are the applications? What industries are leveraging the VigilanteX technology?
It's a really interesting industry. What I'll say is, and it's really about the integration. So we all know AI has been around for a while, but we
Hmm.
associate it with ChatGPT and text and something you do at your desk. Our company, with our partnership with Spot AI, we're taking that kind of same construct, into the physical world. So on edge compute with, their software and, with our cameras and our solar panels, batteries, just fully remote, having that kind of at your desk feel out in the real world. We were able to go across many industries. So we focused initially on home builders and the security aspect, because that's kind of what everybody looks at in this form factor is they'll look and see a trailer. And you've seen these in major retailer parking lots, a trailer with some cameras on it, and
Hmm.
everybody goes right to security. But with what we have, security is probably less than 10% of the capabilities of the vessel. It's about safety. So if you think we've transitioned into large GCs, so folks that build stadiums, folks that build the freeways across our nation, we're working with a lot of organizations that are very concerned about their people. The AI agents can tell when someone does or doesn't have a hard hat on. It can send notifications. If someone's up on a rooftop, not strapped in, it can send a notification. And then the project management aspects. Supers have to go out or PMs have to go out site to site to site. You can just kind of sit at your desk and see all your sites very rapidly. So that time saving aspect is kind of, another feature that we kind of offer. Bringing the AI into the real world. That's where I think there's a lot of opportunity for young people to think about as they think about what will I do when I graduate high school or what do I want to study in college.
You and I are so aligned. Everybody when they think of AI, they think about ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude. I mean, it's generative AI, and obviously that's important. We like to say that all of those are AI, but AI is so much more than generative artificial intelligence. And to your point, the whole applied AI side of things. How are we deploying edge devices, edge sensors that are intelligent? We'll get into what we mean by that in a moment at the edge, and then deploy artificial intelligence and utilize artificial intelligence in every level, control systems, networking, in the fog, in the cloud, what we call the edge to cloud continuum. And that is really where the action is, I think. And there's a certain group of students that are going to really get fired up about writing the next best AI algorithm or understanding how to create 50,000 lines of code using AI. That's awesome for them. But for the other 95% of students and young people and all of us, it's really in the applied artificial intelligence. So just so I understand, Brian, exactly the technology we're talking about here, or at least close enough. So we're deploying cameras on the edge. So I look at a large general contractor who's working on a huge project, be it, to your point, a stadium, a new freeway system, large commercial building, what have you. And you think about the pressure on a general contractor to make sure that their employees are working safely. And there's really two parts of that. The first big part of it, and I think the biggest part, is obviously, as someone who spent my whole career in manufacturing, the rule number one is send your people home safely. It does nothing that we are doing is so important that we wouldn't want somebody to go home to their family at the end of the day the way that they came in the morning. And so that's the really, really big part of it. And then the added aspect of this is the responsibility on the regulatory side. So we've got all kinds of, OSHA regulations and other regulations that we need to comply with. And as somebody that's worked not necessarily in the construction space, although I did a little bit of that more so on manufacturing, the implications for not playing by the rules in that regard can be really, really hefty. And so making sure we're complying with both of those. So now I've got technology that can kind of monitor using edge security devices in the cloud. To your point, are people using their PPE safely? If I'm doing confined space entry, or if I'm up in the air working on something, am I properly deploying fall protection? All obviously for the safety of the employee. And so we're able to utilize AI to identify, among other things, when somebody might not be following exactly the policy or the procedure they need to follow in order to work safely, and then we can correct that on the fly, rather than waiting until a tragedy happens to correct for that. Am I getting that somewhat right?
You're getting it absolutely right. I mean,
Awesome.
there's so many aspects of kind of what you just laid out that are important to address. And bottom line is we want everybody to go home safely every day. And it's across industries and it's inside and outside, right? So with our ecosystem, We have our trailers outside, but with our partnership, we cover inside and outside. So on the manufacturing floor, all the way out to a job site, and it goes across different verticals. So I used construction, I used freeway, oil and gas, different cameras. You can get thermal cameras, you can get all these different other technologies, and the AI agents that are built. Essentially, if you were standing there and you saw it, you could see what would you want to do about it, right? And that's what an agent can do. As a military person, from a security aspect, we would have military guys kind of roam around and look and do these things, but 24/7 doesn't blink is the preferred method from a security aspect. You talk about safety with the OSHA, you can program what those OSHA violations could be and detect those when they occur. You can be passive and capture data. Like I had 17 folks without a hard hat today. You don't have to always take action immediately. And then now you have all this data and you can make informed decisions at a higher level, at a strategic level about, procedurals, things that you need to change, or this super is doing better than this super. I say use the AI as a tool to help you, one, bring everybody home every day. And then secondly, become more efficient and effective in the jobs that you're doing.
Absolutely, and who wouldn't want to be more efficient and effective in their work? Talk about the trailer part. You mentioned the trailer a couple times. I want to make sure that's clear for our audience what you're referencing there.
Sure. Our specialty trailer, we call it Argos. It's solar panels, bifacial solar panels with battery backup. So it's NDAA compliant, it's ruggedized, DOT certifications in HTSB. It's towable. You can move it, put it anywhere as long as you have sun. And we use Starlink. A lot of folks use cellular, but when you have that high definition video, you want to be able to transmit it without bandwidth restrictions and those types of things. So Starlink, solar panels, our software, anywhere that you can use Starlink in the world, and as long as the sun comes up, which it does every day
Yep.
thus far,
So
yeah,
far, right?
you have this ruggedized, really military grade trailer that you can put somewhere. And again, what is it you want to see, and then what do you want to do about it once it's seen? Yeah, I can do all that.
Awesome. So there's no people in the trailer. It's all electronics and technology. Got it. Super, super cool. All right. So now that's launching a whole bunch of questions in my head that are going to be fun to explore. We'll start out with, and our audience, individuals that listen regularly, know that we use this term, the edge to cloud continuum, all the time. I'm a huge believer that we teach artificial intelligence by teaching the edge to cloud continuum. The example that we'll use a lot of times is Spotify on your phone. It can perfectly predict the next song that you want to hear all the time. How does it do that? Well, number one, your phone has 23 smart sensors and smart devices on them. By smart, we mean two things. They have embedded intelligence and they have the ability to communicate with each other. Once we do that, all the concerns about latency and bandwidth that we used to have in terms of sending data back and forth to a computer network, a control system, a cloud, those start to go away. So we can deploy way, way more of them. And that's what's happening in the world, not just of technology, but every sector within our economy. But my phone has these 23 smart sensors and smart devices. Those are communicating with my phone, which, by the way, Spotify knows everything about me. It knows what I listen to. It knows what I skip. It knows what I swipe. It knows what I play over and over and over again. It knows who I follow. It knows who follows me. It knows when I was born. It knows where I live. It takes all this information and it says, all right, this is exactly the next song that Matt Kirchner wants to hear next. It's doing that not just at the phone level, but it's communicating with the fog, which in that case is a regional data center, and also with the cloud, which is an external data center where all these algorithms are running to do all that prediction. And so if we teach students that edge to cloud continuum, and really anybody, not just a student, if we teach them the edge to cloud continuum in any sector, now you can start seeing how that applies to other sectors. We talk about it in manufacturing with smart sensors, devices, programmable logic controllers, data collectors and computer networks, and then cloud computing. Same thing happens in healthcare. Same thing happens in energy. Same thing happens in retail, hospitality, in defense, in construction, across every one of those segments. And so that's when we talk about the edge to cloud continuum. That is my belief of how we teach AI, is we teach how that data is moving back and forth. So in that context, let's talk about what's happening with your technology. So on the edge, you've got cameras and sensors both. Is that right? What kind of things are on that trailer that are monitoring a job site, for example?
Yeah. So cameras and sensors, we use our standard is like a 30x PTZ, so pan tilt zoom camera,
Mm-hmm.
360-degree view. And again, individual customers will determine what it is they want to see. The agent is developed for that particular thing. And when it's detected, The beauty is that will create an incident. That incident is then stored. So we have 2 terabytes on-prem on the machine, but the incidents are stored and then sent to the cloud. So we're not processing on the cloud, processing at the unit level. The speed, the security, all those things are enhanced when you can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you start thinking again about the edge to cloud continuum rather than having to send all of that data that you're collecting up to Starlink, and then via Starlink it would go to, and it is the selective data that you're using is going then to a data center of some sort. You've got a lot of that data being stored on prem, and now, and you've mentioned agents a couple times. Let's go into agentic AI and how we're deploying AI agents, which to me, my best analogy there is it's like a digital employee, right? We can create an agent to do anything that a person would do, but it'll do it digitally, it'll do it much more accurately, and it'll do it faster. So talk about the whole agentic AI side of your technology, Brian.
I think that's well, I'll say the secret sauce is just,
Sure.
again, that's why you can go across all the different verticals. Once you understand, okay, if I were standing there, and I'll use a safety officer, for example,
Sure.
again, this form factor, everybody looks at the machine and think, okay, security. And that's less than 10%, I believe, what the capability is. So let's take a safety officer. And a safety officer can't stand on a site, whether it's a oil and gas platform or a field or a construction site, college campus. I mean, just think about all the different use cases. You can't stand there 24/7,
Right.
but the machine can. So you develop the agents. What is it you want to see? I want to see no hard hats or safety vests or crowding, because think something's about to happen. Anything that your mind can think of, if you were standing there and wanted to see, you can train an agent
Mm-hmm.
to detect that on your behalf. And once
Perfect.
it's trained, you upload kind of positive images of that, negative images of that, then you validate. Once it's trained, it'll continue that learning process, and you continue to validate that. It just gets smarter and smarter.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I know you can't give up the the underlying technology. Wouldn't expect you to, but I want to make sure that that point isn't lost on our audience. Is that a lot of times people working in the AI field use big words like agentic AI, and sometimes they use them because that's the parlance they use to communicate with each other. Sometimes they use it to impress you or confuse you, or make you feel like they're smarter than you are. The truth of the matter is it's really simple, and I love that example because you're like, we could have a security agent on a job site that's a human being that's doing something. That job probably isn't the most fascinating job, just sitting there and watching to make sure that people are complying with whatever regulation. Maybe it pays okay, maybe maybe not, but now we're taking that technology and deploying it to, and then we can take that individual and put them in a role that might be even more interesting to them, better paying for them, what have you. The other thing that you already mentioned, and I saw it in manufacturing, right? We used to do all of our visual inspection using people, and so if you're you're inspecting for compliance with a some type of a specification provided to you by whoever is expecting that part next, that you're manufacturing. The truth of the matter is that visual inspection by a human being, it's about 95% accurate, maybe 99 or 97% accurate, I should say, which seems pretty good. Other than you realize then that 3% of what you're doing is going out the door and it isn't right, right? So that can be a real problem. So the other thing is just the accuracy side of this that you're able to do with agentic AI. And as young people are thinking about careers around artificial intelligence, how you create an AI agent for a specific task, for a specific application, is really where the future a lot of this technology is. So really, really fascinating, how you're utilizing it. Any examples on the sensors? I mean, are we talking about temperature sensors, moisture, humidity, proximity, light? I mean, what kind of sensors are you using?
So I think if you use like the thermal cameras,
Mm-hmm.
the thermal sensing is an
Sure.
example. We have a site where we're just really looking at batteries and make sure that they don't heat up to a certain level and
Yep.
cause all that runoff. That's an example of one of our use cases.
Perfect. Yeah, really, really fascinating. I could sit here and just talk about the technology and the applications for the next 2 hours. I'm not sure the audience would be as fascinated by that as I am. So
They
maybe
really
we'll
are.
take yeah, we'll take that offline, along with some of the other discussions about former presidents and whatever else we've already teed up here for future episodes. But I want to stay on the topic, and you mentioned Spot AI a number of moments ago as you were introducing the company and the technology. Talk about that relationship and that platform, and you had said at some previous point that it does for video what ChatGPT has done for text. So tell us what Spot AI is.
Well, Spot AI, I mean, it's led by two phenomenal gentlemen that we're obviously partnered with and very close with. They went to Stanford, and I'll say loosely, when everybody went to the cloud years ago, they went to the edge, and they were kind of first into this area, and they're very, very experienced. I'd say probably one of the global leaders in, I'll call on the edge technology. And the partnership with us helps them grow to the physical world on the outside of the buildings. It's kind of like you described. So again, AI has been around for a while, ChatGPT and text, um, but to be able to search video, so think of the same type of application ChatGPT does for the text.
Right.
Our partnership with them, we can do that in video. So you can go into our system. It's all web-based, a single user interface for our entire ecosystem. So if it's inside or outside and everything in between, you can go in and you can type in text and search the video, much like you would do outside of the physical world.
You're engineering a prompt, I should say, but instead of doing that in text, you're doing it using video. And then is the model kind of the same, where a generative pre-trained transformer will kind of predict the next word, and that's the kind of predictive side of generative artificial intelligence? Is it doing the same thing with video, or go a little deeper there?
It does. So you would type in text like, show me all yellow forklifts in the past 30 days. You put you type that in
Yep.
and you can put the window that you want to look, and it'll go through, months worth of video in seconds
Yeah.
and pop up all those video clips of the thing that you're looking for.
Cool.
So before it would take a human days to
Yeah,
have to go back and
absolutely.
look in and just try to find what you're looking for. And it does it instantaneously.
It's amazing. So it almost feels like, if I go into my, my photo app on my smartphone, and I say, find all the pictures with dogs, and it'll go and find the dog pictures. It's doing the same thing, but it's doing it with whatever you're trying to monitor outside as it relates to security. Yeah. So think about that as far as whether it's compliance, whether it's going back and even like accident investigation or near misses or those kind of things. It feels like there's all kinds of applications there. That's really, really cool.
And you can set it up to create the cases, right? So, like, if you know that, these types of things are something that you want to keep, the agents will automatically create a case for it and store it for you,
Huh.
so that when you go back, it's already there.
That's cool. Who creates the agents? Are those all custom, or are those turnkey kind of existing on the platform, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have some preset, so like common, so like in construction, like on indoors, like your experience with manufacturing, forklift incidents or the crowding or hard hat detection, those are kind of standard, but any custom one can be built. The custom ones can be built in a matter of seconds and minutes. I mean, it's not that hard.
Okay, so an individual utilizing the platform can create their own agent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, this is really, really cool. So tell me a little bit about who creates all this and what is their background. Are these data scientists? Are these computer programmers? Are they AI agent or AI experts, I should say? Or who developed all this stuff?
Again, so the Spot AI, the founders and their team came up with kind of all this, and they developed the software, and it's so user friendly. So at the customer side, like
Sure.
even a simple helicopter pilot can go build this agent.
Yeah,
Uh,
simple helicopter pilot, right? As if that's yeah. But believe me, I was in the cockpit of that helicopter over the weekend. There's nothing simple about what's going on in there. but your point
compared
is well
to
taken. You don't need to be a
compared to
data
some other
scientist.
helicopters, I'd say that's pretty simple stuff.
So let's talk then about, whether it's a software developer or somebody who's an expert in AI, somebody who's an expert in camera technology. I mean, all these different applications on the edge as it relates to artificial intelligence, and talk about, students and some of the careers. So, we're big believers that we teach all of this stuff using applied artificial intelligence. And when I say applied, I'm, in a school, I'm thinking like, all right, I can have a scaled down autonomous vehicle platform, or drones that are using edge to cloud technology. I can have a advanced manufacturing or industry 4.0 application that's using smart sensors at the edge and communicating with cloud software that's finding patterns in what I'm seeing in advanced manufacturing. I can have students who are, coding. They could be programming. I mean, the precision agriculture, you think about the applications there. They could be learning on like a small tractor that's full of sensors and communicating with the cloud using GPS technology and software and so on. That to me is how we teach this, right? We teach it in a hands-on way. We teach it on the applied side. It's not all theory. It's not all coding and programming. Not that that isn't important, but there's way more to it than that. Are we like-minded? I mean, I kind of feel like we already are from that previous part of the
Absolutely.
conversation. And then talk a little bit about how your technology serves as examples of why we should be teaching it that way.
We are absolutely like-minded in this, and I'll start my comments with, and I'm sure you're familiar and your listeners are familiar with the mandate out of China that all the children learn starting in primary and secondary education. It's a requirement, and
So
they're,
yeah, let me just
you know,
tell you, I was, and maybe if you're a regular listener, you already know this, but I spent a week in China in August, visited 26 tech companies in 6 days, and that shocked me. And so keep going on that. It's mandatory. K-12 education mandates AI education in China. So keep going.
right. So the point I was going to make is that I think we're behind in that thought process. I think our children need to know it's not okay. I don't want to go in and be a programmer or it's across all. And I gave an example of a couple of industries, right? And that's just a couple, but your mind can think of myriad industries that there's application. So if you want to go and if children, students want to go down a different route, you can't ignore it, right? Your point is spot on about just the versatility in not only our education system of implementing some type of learning. I think we kind of limit it to AI is writing papers, and that's the extent of the conversation. That's just so I'll say insufficient for what we need for our future, our national defense, or national security, and all those aspects.
Here again, this could be a whole episode. I think we have a huge opportunity. There's the education model in China. There's also the U.S.'s attitude, for lack of a better term, toward the intellectual property as it relates to coding and programming, and how China looks at that. In China, it's all open source, right? There's no IP really. Not to say none, because I'm sure they protect some of it at some level. But generally, somebody who's innovating in China, all that code is open source. I mean, so you create a new AI algorithm, you put it in a humanoid robot, it's on GitHub 2 months later, and the whole world has the ability to look under the hood and see how you're doing that. In the US, it's exactly the opposite in the sense that we are closed source. Companies like Meta AI, companies like Anthropic, they're not out there sharing all their code with everybody else. It's like, that's your secret sauce. You used that term a little while ago. That's how we do this, and we're not sharing that with anybody. That creates a competitive advantage, and in a capitalistic economy, creates an opportunity for us to generate revenue and ultimately net worth and wealth. So two really, really different ways of looking at the same issue. So your comments on education, on applied artificial intelligence, on the sense of urgency. This isn't a 5-year problem. This is a 5-month problem we have here in the United States of making sure that every school across the country is teaching applied AI. Super, super important.
What I thought about this in February to today is there's so much change is happening so rapidly, and that's to your point about like 5 months, right? And then the other is the historical approach. As you were talking, it just made me think, like the World Wide Web, microwave, all the things that we kind of gave the world.
Yes.
Historically, this is a little different, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Everybody's innovating and things to learn from both sides, but I think the stakes are higher too. To your point, I mean, it's one thing to say, well, we could microwave an egg faster than you could. It's another thing to say that we can build an AI platform that has the ability to transform the entire world economy. The country that does that, the company that does that, the individuals that do that, obviously the impact is way, way bigger than than the proliferation of the microwave oven. So the stakes are super, super high. I think you make a really, really good point. Actually, and also looking forward to hearing a little bit more about VigilanteX and the applications for your technology. So far, we've talked about construction. We've talked about building freeways and infrastructure. What about applications in the military? Is that a future opportunity?
Absolutely. When I just retired last year, so when I joined this effort, I thought about these applications, and you get that epiphany of, man, I wish a couple of my responsibilities was the Marine Corps security aspects of guarding embassies and guarding nuclear weapons and those types of things, and just augmenting. I tell folks because some people get concerned about AIs taking human jobs. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
every command I've ever had, every effort I've ever led, I never had enough people to do the task that I had to do, right? I could take like one of our machines and put it there and free that individual up to go do something I deem a lot more important than kind of standing there with that capability 24/7, right? And then, the recycling of, every post three to five people and all those types of things. I could just eliminate that and move those folks to go over and do other things. There's so many use cases from a military construct that this would benefit.
So I think about the same thing from my days in manufacturing, where everybody was like, "Aren't robots going to take all the jobs?" And I've been, as long as I was in manufacturing, I never had enough people to get the work done. And there's more jobs in manufacturing than there are people to fill them. We'll worry about that when the time comes. But for right now, let's just find a way to get the work done. And good chance there's going to be that much more work waiting for us once we solve for this problem. So that's never been an issue, at least in my career. Think about for a moment, Brian, what does the future look like of AI in military operations? I'm sure there's a ton of stuff that you could never share, but in terms of what you could, how is AI gonna affect and impact the military operations over the course of the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
I think that the simplest forms, just like in industry, looking for those efficiencies, whether it's in human capital, where we can, start having like, the paralegal type of work done or administrative type of work or logistics, those types of things. I think you're going to see a transition there. And then as you go up to the higher end, where it's going to help in planning and help in strategy and help in execution, right? So again, our machine can tell you when something's happening based off of what it sees. If you expand that out, if you have let's say better cameras or satellites and things that can extend out, and use an AI to help you speed up that decision cycle.
So if I'm a student that's hearing that and I'm saying AI is going to have huge applications in the U.S. military, and I'm thinking about the military as a potential career choice, how should I be preparing myself for that career pathway? What are the things a student could do in middle school, in high school? What are those things they should be preparing themselves for?
I think the main baseline thing is to be a voracious learner, right? And if you're not interested in coding and those type of things, which like I remember carrying Fortran cards back in the
Yep,
day, but
right, exactly,
it's a little different now. But just
for sure.
everything's evolving, change. So you want to be very adaptive to change, and find what it is you like and that you're interested in, and then understand how AI can be used as a tool to support the things that you want to do. And then again, I tell you, there's not a job that I can think of that's not in the military, whether it's in the Navy with our corpsmen or our doctors or aviators. There's infantry. I mean, there's so many aspects. Munitions techs. There's everything that you can think of. Those opportunities are there. One, it's a way to serve your country, do something that you're passionate about, meet wonderful people from all across the globe.
Yep, and launch an amazing career, whether it's 39 and a half years in the military and then being the CEO of a tech company, or taking an on ramp or an off ramp anywhere along the way. It's just an incredible way to launch your career, build discipline, and learn incredible technology, and also get some help with whatever comes after your military service as well. So super career choice, and wouldn't hesitate to encourage as many of our young people as possible to consider that as one as they move through their education pathway, which is kind of where I want to leave us here. Brian, a couple more questions for you. One on education. We've talked a lot about applied education, applied artificial intelligence education, graduating from high school when you're 16 years old, what students can be doing in high school to prepare themselves for military careers. Is there something about education from your particular pathway, which was unique in many respects, that you would say, I have this view of education that's a little bit different or might surprise some folks?
Here's a good one. So growing up, I'll say our mother, my sisters and I, we had no idea that college was even an option. So for us, it was ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, 13th grade, 14th. I didn't know I had a
Yeah.
choice. So just that fundamental, I'll say, discipline and thought process really was a benefit to us. And, I don't know that people think about that, right? Again, I had no concept of, I thought everyone had to go to college.
Huh.
And that's
Interesting. Yeah.
obviously not the case.
Sure.
So it was never an option in our household.
Got it. Yeah. So everybody has to go to college. That was just the expectation that you had growing up from the environment in which you grew up, and especially during that era, right? I mean, that was the ticket in a lot of ways to the college education. And so kudos to your family for encouraging you in that regard. And now we think about in this stage of the world, which is now several decades later, all these options and all these on-ramps and off-ramps that didn't necessarily exist. So consider your options. Certainly a four-year university can be a great one, but not the only one. And make sure you keep your options open.
How can I want to make sure I do say that for your listeners that that's not an option or not a consideration.
Yep.
I would even reinforce that the military or government service options or the vocational options are absolutely a way to get a good start, learn a trade, learn all these things that we've discussed, and then go on and have a phenomenal career.
Exactly right. And that's the beauty of the world we're living in today is that, we've got work to do in making sure students understand all those options, but they certainly have them. And whether it's, government service, whether it's the military, would love to see that at the top of the list of as many students as possible. I'm glad you mentioned that. We're going to take you, Brian, for the last question. Back to, we usually say to your sophomore year in high school. It's a question we ask a lot of our guests on the Tech Ed podcast. In your case, sophomore year of high school, you were almost graduated. So let's say we're going to take you back to your 15-year-old self. And if you could give yourself, Brian, one piece of advice to that 15-year-old young man, what would that be?
I think I would focus on enjoying today and not worrying so much about tomorrow. I think we all get in the habit of, what I gotta do. And I'll go back to my time when I was HMX. When you leave the squadron, you generally have an opportunity to go up to the Oval Office and get a chance to meet the president, take a photo. So my wife and I went up and somebody told me, he said, make sure you look around. You're in the line, you're kind of moving up, and then you get to the crest of the opening and you see the president. And then you kind of go in, take the picture, chit chat, and then you're in the out. And it's like, did I get a chance to look around? Right.
Right.
And you
Absolutely.
And I would advise myself to enjoy the moment, enjoy the day as much as you can, and tomorrow will come. Don't rush it.
Whether you're standing in the Oval Office, which, by the way, is a bucket list item for me. I haven't had that opportunity. I pray that I will at some point in my life. But standing in the Oval Office, what an incredible opportunity that must have been. Take it all in. Slow down, enjoy today. Tomorrow is another day and will take care of itself one way or the other, but enjoy every single day. I've certainly enjoyed this day, spending time with Lieutenant General Brian Cavanaugh, Chief Executive Officer of VigilanteX. We've learned so much about his incredible work, about edge-to-cloud technology, the edge-to-cloud continuum. I'm so glad we had you on as a guest, Brian, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And we will link up the show notes at techedpodcast.com/Cavanaugh. That's techedpodcast.com/CAVANAUGH. So any of those references we made today that we want to go a little bit deeper on, we'll be sure and place those in the show notes. When you're done there, check us out on social media. Tech Ed Podcast is on LinkedIn. We are on TikTok. We are all over Facebook. You'll find us wherever you consume your social media, including Instagram, by the way. So wherever it is you go for social, track us down, say hello. We would love to hear from you. Loved having Brian Cavanaugh on the podcast this week. A great conversation, and look forward to seeing everybody next week. My name is Matt Kirchner, host of the Tech Ed Podcast. Thanks for being with us.